Hey there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name's Matt and today we're finishing off our playthrough of Space Quest 2. Where we left off is we've just been walking around Vohol's asteroid, collecting a number of items and basically just finding what we can find so we can see how we progress the game. Just as we're exiting the bathrooms here, we've got another negative air quality report from one of our sensors. I went into a little bit more about what that means in the last part of the playthrough. So if that interests you, go back and have a look at part 2. And just as I say that, we can see here, if we have a look, it just says, it's another one of those tubular halls. There are 2 doors. Look, machine. I don't think it's in view right now. This thing that's following us is a floor waxer. I'm not sure the exact... Maybe if just look waxer. There's an automated floor waxer moving down the corridor. The name plaque reads the Toledo Buffmaster, another fine product from Helmet Master Enterprises. So I think Toledo is supposed to be a play on Toledo. And I don't know, Helmet Master, I think it's just because it looks like a helmet, especially with that little beacon thing kind of flashing away on top. But if I sort of stand around, it will run me over. So I'm just going to save it here. And just for fun, because it's kind of cool looking, if I just stand here, it basically buffs me into the floor, which I always thought looked pretty cool. Oh, it's coming back for a second pass. It's like double buffed me into the floor. It looks like you have been formally introduced to the floor waxer. You now consist of a very thin yet glossy floor covering. Too bad, you seem to be making relatively good progress. So yeah, that's always a funny one. So let's go back, except this time not get run over by the floor buffer. So evading this thing's fairly easy. You just need to find a doorway or a lift or something. And you can get away from it like that. So let's go to the final level, level 5. Now this one here, there's a couple of funny things you can kind of do. Basically, entering from this side is the easiest because we don't encounter these basically like prison cell cage things on the other side, of which one of them releases this weird looking beast, which we'll probably deliberately do just for the sake of actually seeing what happens. But nonetheless, this is definitely the easy way to approach it. So actually I won't save it just yet. Let's just go in here because it's relatively safe. Press button. Do another look around. It is quite dark in here. There is a small waste basket. On the floor next to it is a pair of crusty work overalls. So let's take the basket. Aren't you amazed by how much stuff an adventure game hero can carry? You've just got to know how to pack. And we'll take the overalls. You pick up the overalls. They are very small and quite worn out, not to mention filthy and of no use to you. You toss them back on the floor. As you set them down, something falls to the floor. So let's look at the floor. You see some filthy overalls and a lighter. So let's take the lighter. Now at this point, we actually have everything we need. So we're going to save it. And we're going to call this everything we need. Alright. So one thing that's kind of interesting, if you walk a bit close to this cell, this big dude like thumps us. Yelch, you feel amazingly dense. Apparently, you are the prime focal point for some aggression channeling by one of the caged creatures. Your compressed composition indicates that your attacker possesses considerable strength, a good guy to avoid in the future. Another classic. Alright, so we avoid that one, but that's not the one we've got to worry about. If we continue walking this way, there is another cage that starts to open. So let's look cage. As in common with all periods of cage design, vertical bars of a sturdy nature dominate the appearance. They look quite impenetrable. Oh no, one of the cells is opening. Who knows what unspeakable horror waits behind those steel bars? I'm just going to get this pre-prepared. So let's do a look creature. It is a dark, prehistoric looking beast with plates covering its body. One outstanding feature is a pair of gigantic red lips. So you can see this thing's going to start to want to follow us. So basically what will happen with this creature is, and I might as well let it happen just so you can see. If we just let it catch up to us, it gives us a big kiss. Smack. Oh, yuck. The dark and spiny beast with massive red lips grabs you up and after a longing glance proceeds, don't read further if the phrase French kiss bothers you, to plant a very moist French kiss on you. You are left quite stunned. And then it just kind of wanders off. So at this point, you know, we've still got control of ourselves and we can still wander around and do stuff. However, I might just save this as a separate game, just if we want to have a bit of fun at the end. So we're going to call this After Kiss. The problem is that when you get right to the end of the game, that kiss actually basically, I guess, implanted parasites into us, and those parasites kind of jump out and, as you guess, we die right at the end of the game. So I've restored it back to the one where it didn't kiss us. We'll finish the game, and then just for fun, I might put at the ending of this one what happens if you actually let the person kiss you or the creature kiss you, and you can see what happens again right at the end. So now that we've got everything we need, let's hop back in the lift, and I'm just going to deviate just slightly because there is a bit of a fun Easter egg, I guess you would call it. I'm not sure if it's exactly an Easter egg because it's not really hidden, but it's something you wouldn't consider doing, which results in a very funny ending. So just to speed it along, I'm going to put it on to fast mode, and we'll just kind of power through here. And the idea is, silly floor waxers in my way. Let's just go back, let the floor waxer past. We just kind of hold out here. It'll kind of go past us. And then, now we're all good. But yeah, there's something we can do in the bathroom, which wouldn't occur to most people, but nonetheless is quite funny. So let's just get ready to press the button so we can enter the door. So here we go. Alright, so now that we've got the lighter, if we type use lighter in here. Well, Roger Wilco, I guess you'll be paying methane a little more respect in the future. If Mr. Science were here, he would have explained that open flame and high concentrations of methane gas don't mix. Since you're dead, you best get to restoring. It's been a pleasure watching you play Space Quest 2. So yeah, that's a classic. Not really an Easter egg, as I said, but it's just something fun that they built in there that kind of just adds a bit more humour to it. So we're just going to wander back to the lift here. It's about the same time restoring it as the original game. That's why I didn't bother saving it for the other one. And we're going to go back down to level 1 where we started. So we're going to press 1. Oops. Still getting used to this keyboard. This is the original IBM style keyboard with a very small enter key. So it's quite, well, tricky is the wrong word. It's just quite fiddly to use until you get used to it. Lovely and clicky though. Alright, so we're going back to normal speed so I don't just swan dive off the edge of this platform. Now you can sort of see that funky looking tunnel on the right there. That's going to come later on. I often wondered when I was younger playing this game how you get up there, but you can't until you progress down here a little bit further. So we're going to just go down these stairs. And then just before I walk through the door, we're going to give this a save. So we're going to call this Matthew Downstairs. Alright. So if you go down here without being prepared, you're in trouble. The door behind you closes solidly. A barrier springs up before you. Another barrier stands in your way. So now you're effectively stuck. You feel the floor shift below you. It is moving to the left. So you can kind of see the floors opening up. Floor is moving. Beneath it is... Floor is moving. Beneath it is what you guessed to be a pool of highly lethal liquid. So the liquid's acid. And you can probably guess what's going to happen. Well, we might as well just find out what's going to happen. Imagine, if you will, taking a bath in sulfuric acid and using pumice for a washcloth. After that bit of displeasure passes, it gets much worse as the acid slowly eats its way through the last critical organs. Finally, mercifully, death takes you. Way to go, Wingnut. You've demonstrated your inability to sustain life. You quickly glance around the room to see if anyone saw you blow it. I found that, again, Space Quest 2, the writing for this and all of the weird sort of deaths and the weird comical commentary is just absolutely top-notch. But to escape this little problem, you got to do the classic plunger on the wall. So, So there's a little bug. See how I put the plunger on the wall and then I released my grip and it's basically now opened up the whole area, but I can't exit. That's a problem. So I guess what we will do here is go back to downstairs. I thought that you had to put the plunger on the wall first and then hold plunger, but it looks like you don't. But you got to do this right at the last minute. So if I'd left it the way it was, with the acid bath kind of like an eighth open, we would have basically fallen at the last second right into the acid bath. So we need to wait this out a little further. And generally when it gets to about 3/4 of the way or it's almost hitting your feet is the best time to put the plunger on the wall. So almost there. There we go. Using formerly uncharacteristic... Let's try that one again. Using formerly uncharacteristic creativity, you apply the suction cup-like plunger to the smooth metal finish and hang on for dear life. Once a janitor, always a janitor. And this basically saves our life here. So after a few seconds, it assumes we've fallen into the drink. If we now release our grip, you release your grip and drop back down, everything opens back up again. Now I'm just going to do another save here. So let's just call it Matthew downstairs again. If we now wander off to the left or the right, doesn't matter which, we will find some rather nasty dudes. Let's look at this robot. The huge metal menace is specifically designed to secure a given area. When not busy, it is plugged into the wall, recharging. Imagine what the NICADs would cost for that puppy. Now, for those viewers who are a bit younger, a NICAD is a type of rechargeable battery. So these days we have lithium ion for just about everything, but back in these days, NICADs were the thing. Now, you can escape it by going up the stairs, but let's not do that. Let's just try and outrun it going to the right. Now notice on the ceiling, there's little like sprinkler looking things, not the alarm looking things we had before. That's a bit of a clue as to how we need to get out of this. And you can sort of see we can't outrun it because another one just pops up pretty much straight away. And even if I do go up, oh, he's right on my tail. Even if I do go up these stairs, he'll kind of hang around, but you can't avoid it. So you have made the mistake of getting within what looks to be a cattle prod's length of the metal menace. An electrical contact connected to an extension arm reaches from its body and makes contact with you. That's when you begin feeling the intense burst of electrical current pulsing through your body. You quickly black out. As you can see, you amount to a little more than a hill of laser-fried beans. You've come up a long way only to be torched. Keep up the fine work. Okay. So, basically, those metal menaces get in your way. But as I mentioned, there's those little fire sprinkler looking things up there. And what doesn't mix with electronics? Well, water doesn't. So let's do the classic let's set a sprinkler off technique that you see in the movies. Let's put the paper in the basket. It's a classic waste paper basket or bin fire. Put the basket on the ground and light the paper up. So we've got a nice little fire going there, and sure enough, on go the sprinklers. While receiving a nice hosing yourself, the basket fire is extinguished. Seconds later, a loud series of pops is followed by the smell of fried electronics. Awesome. The sprinklers sense accomplishment and cease operation. So at this point, we've now fried all of those robot things on both sides. So we are free to wander. Your fire and subsequent shower seem to have shorted out the burnished bullies. Now right at the end of this corridor is a door. And just before we go through it, I'm going to do a save. There's not really a lot of opportunity here to run into too much peril. Not at least to begin with. Let's call this Matthew at Vohol. Because behind this door is Vohol's lair. You have just entered Vohol's secret chamber. The evil one himself is seated before a large console high on a platform in the center of the room. Standing obliviously ready are many of the dreaded salesman clones. So, Roger Wilco, we meet again. I must say I'm quite impressed with your resourcefulness and tenacity. I'd love to chat, but I'm busy preparing the last of my salesman clones for their trip to Xenon. Feel free to stick around and observe the downfall of your civilization. Ha ha ha. Now the obvious thing to do here is to walk up the stairs and confront him. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Going somewhere? Ha ha ha. Now there's no way to avoid this little part. Which doesn't matter, we're not actually being killed. As soon as you step on the platform, you are struck by a beam of light emitted from a unit in the ceiling. In a matter of seconds, you are broken down into microparticles and extracted from the air. Again, the beam strikes, this time blasting into a glass jar on the console. It is there that you are molecularly reconstructed in a miniaturized form. So here we are in a little bell jar. Well, I'll be darned. My miniaturization beam does work, Vohol's voice booms. In the old days, I'd test these things on myself. But as you may have noticed by my appearance, being my own guinea pig has had its disadvantages. I guess this will keep you out of my way once and for all. You'll make a nice conversation piece. With that, Vohol turns away to put finishing touches on Xenon's fate. Alright. Let's do a little savage here. In jar. So, remember we found a glass cutter. It's going to be useful. Let's cut our way out. The newly cut pane of glass falls to the counter. Apparently, Vohol doesn't notice. So now we're kind of free to wander around this little bit, but we have to be careful. I'm just going to do another quick save here, because there's two things we can do. Or you can just take a step off the edge. You now know for a fact that less weight does not equal less pain at the onset of deceleration trauma. You've come so far only to die in a dumb way. What a geek. So that's a classic. The other thing that you can do, which is a mistake, is if you walk along this side part here. So Vohol's kind of in this next screen because there's the keyboard, these hoses and stuff. Oops. Darn, Roger Wilco. I guess his lardness got a little fed up with your meddling. You've been redesigned once again, revealing a permanent overhead view. You resemble one of those wonderfully colourful mosaic commonly found on windshields. So basically you got squashed like a bug. So that's obviously not going to work as well. So what does work is if you do a look around. You're on the surface of the console. A large compared view jar sits in the middle. A hole has been cut in the side. There are some vents near the back. How about let's crawl into the vent. You wiggle your slim carcass through the vent. Judging from the two hoses coming in from the outside, you guess that this is the inner workings of Vohol's life support system. A respirator pumps oxygen into his lungs, while a pump on the back wall forces blood through the filters. There's also a sign on the back wall. Let's read the sign. The sign says, "Caution, press button for emergency shutoff." How about let's do that? So notice everything's stopped. Way to go, Roger Wilco. You've just disconnected Vohol's life support system. He's a goner without it. You can see Vohol struggling to take his last few breaths. Not you again. You think you have won, he wheezes, but all you have done is to seal your own fate. He reaches up and flips a switch on the far end of the console before dropping to the floor, dead. So, now we can wander here safely. We've got to find a way of getting ourselves back to regular size. So, notice we've got an on-off switch up here. Let's give that one a bit of a go. Reduce or enlarge. So let's type enlarge. If you type reduce, it will work. But when you stand in the beam, it turns you into something so microscopic that you're basically dead at that point. So that's not a wise thing to do. So we can see the beam's kind of buzzing away here. Let's get into there. Okay. You are once again reconstituted, this time to the correct size. You notice that the clones are gone. Well, that's bad. Now, very quickly, let's search this Vohol's body. An examination of his repulsively turgid fabric-encased mass reveals nothing other than the tubes which supplied him with blood and oxygen. You do notice the letters SHSR written in pen on the back of his left hand. Now, notice the screen's flashing. Let's have a look at the screen. So you can see orbit's decaying, prognosis is terminal, interior is okay, external temperature is critical, clone launch is a go. To abort the launch, enter the code. Now remember we saw in his hand, SHSR, clone launch is aborted. But still, we have a terminal prognosis and orbit decay because he's basically put the asteroid into a self-destruct of the planet. So we need to get off of this rock ASAP. So I'm just going to do another save. So this one will be Matthew Vohol is done. Now this little staircase up here always used to get me as a kid because I never used to use the diagonal keys to walk. But if you go diagonally up to the right, it matches it perfectly rather than kind of left-righting it with the up arrow and right arrow keys. Now there's a box here. Let's have a look at it. This box is actually an oxygen mask receptacle. It is currently closed. Let's open it. You open the box, noticing an oxygen mask, remove it, and close the box. Now that's going to be a little bit useful in about 30 seconds time when we wander around this corner. So we're just going to basically linearly progress along here. There's nowhere to really explore anymore. We're just going to basically wander straight and we're going to come across a way of exiting the asteroid. Now I'm just going to pre-type put on oxygen mask, because in just a second, notice there's some cracks. As soon as you see those cracks, you've really got to put the mask on. A section of the glass tubing has fractured from the combined stress. The pressurized atmosphere rushes from the relative vacuum of space. Fortunately, you're wearing the mask, protects you from suffocation. Alright. So, no longer needing the mask, you remove it and stow it for later. So now I've got this really annoying siren thing. I might just turn the volume down just a bit for you guys, because it does get pretty annoying after a while. Okay, that's probably a little bit better. Now, let's just do another save. And this one is, let's call it in final corridor. Alright. So yeah, hopefully that alarm is not too loud anymore, but as I said, it gets really grating even with a regular PC speaker on a regular computer. So, ironically, down here, we have a series of escape pods, but they're guarded. So their unauthorized access is not permitted. Now, I'm going to save it again just before we cross over the next screen. Because if you time this dead right, you can actually kind of cheat it a little bit. But if you get the timing dead wrong, it does not work. So let's call this near escape pod. Alright. So if I quickly press this button, I just got it. So notice what I did there. I came on the screen and that little robot guy started walking towards me. Sorry I couldn't speak at the same time. But if you press a button, it opens the door to the escape pod. And if you type get in pod really quickly, the robot has apparently decided that it's permissible for you to be here since you're in the pod already. Nice. Now we'll loop back in just a second. So I'm going to save it here. I'm just going to call this in pod. So that's going to save us a heck of a lot of time. Now, if I didn't manage to pull that off, what you have to do is, I think this is the official way of doing it, maybe? But basically, you'll notice the Maromatic dude, he starts following me. If we walk to the right here, 40 minutes until meltdown, a synthesized voice cheerfully announces. He'll follow us, but then we can do a massive lap around that kind of funky psychedelic red corridor thing we saw near the elevators. But it takes quite a while, so we're not going to do that. Let's just let him basically run into us. Any curiosity you may have harbored regarding the menacing metallic pest will now be satisfied as you've drawn too close. Your attention is attracted to a decal on the front of the machine. It says the Vohol Maromatic. This rouses your curiosity. Suddenly you note that each and every bone in your body feels as though it has been transformed into molten matter. Never slow to catch on, you notice that you are cooking from the inside out. This is a pain that lingers. Every drop of moisture is purged from your system by the intense heat of the internal barbecue. Your dehydrated composition makes it impossible to continue. Better luck next time, Roger Wilco. So yeah, the Maromatic, he means business. But as I said, you can avoid him by just walking around a massive loop. It takes about a couple of minutes. But we're going to pretend we just did that. And again, it makes no difference in terms of points if you outrun him or not. So now what you can do is look pod. You're seated inside one of the emergency escape vehicles. Before you lies a control panel and a viewport. If you look panel, the only outstanding feature on the panel is the clearly marked launch button. Let's press launch. Warning, emergency escape vehicle launch sequence has begun. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So look at that, we have escaped the asteroid. Phew, you're going to have to stop cutting these escapes so close, Roger Wilco. Well, you must feel pretty good right now. You stopped Vohol from carrying out his threat of salesman infestation, ultimately destroying the twisted scientist himself. You also managed to save your own skin, and just look at that score, pretty darn impressive. But we're not quite done yet. Suddenly, a warning signal draws your attention to the oxygen meter at the front panel. It reads low and dropping fast. This is just great. You knew it was all too good to be true. You have maybe 5 minutes of air left? Well, Roger Wilco, it was nice knowing you. We're never done yet though. Let's do a look around. Now you take the time to view the interior of the pod in more detail. You see a sleep chamber against the wall. Let's open the chamber. You open, and let's get in the chamber. You make the split-second decision to enter the sleep chamber. It seals automatically. Soon you're overcome by a pleasant drowsiness. This is certainly better than suffocating. You begin to drift away into a deep sleep with the satisfaction of having accomplished your task. You've come through in the clutch and you deserve a nice long rest. Now if someone would just pick you up somewhere along the way. So long, Roger Wilco, and thanks again for saving your people. And look at that, 250 points out of 250 points. This one is actually the easiest space quest I've found to get the full score. Provided you do everything that you need to do and cover all your bases, you'll generally get the 250 out of 250. Now, that is it. At the start of Space Quest 3, and if you've watched my Space Quest 3 playthrough, you'd already know this, but at the start, you're basically rescued from drifting in space by a garbage freighter. So you start off in Space Quest 3, the pod drifting along just like it is now, and rescue's a loose term, but you're picked up by a garbage freighter. So again, all of the space quests like this link into each other, which I find is really cool. Now, for a bit of bonus, let's restore the game. And we're going to basically go back to after we got kissed. So here we are. We've just been kissed by that weird looking, I guess, alien person. I'm going to absolutely power through this right back till we get to the point where we're just before in the escape pod. So stay tuned and I'll see you there. Okay everyone, and we're back. So I've basically just gone through, done exactly the same stuff, except I've let the alien kiss me. So let's go to the next screen and see what happens. Now I think if I'm sufficiently quick here, nope, not sufficiently quick. I think if I'm sufficiently quick, I can still get into the pod, and nothing bad happens, but let's just play this out the way it's supposed to be. So I've got the Maramatic following me. And we're going to do the big circular loop around the complex. So this is the way I think that the game designers intended you to do it. The way that if you press the button and get in really quickly, it's also intentional, don't get me wrong, but it's only for those who are really skilled and very fast typers and have actually, you know, tried to find an alternate way. But this has got the robot following us, which is great. We go through this weird psychedelic tunnel. You are suddenly racked by an excruciating violent pain. It feels as if your body is trying to turn inside out. After gaining freedom from its flesh fortress, the odd little alien runs away, leaving you lying on the floor like a used, oversized placenta. A darn tough, yet unique way to go. That should teach you to not be sucking face with alien beings in the future. So there you go, there's a little final bonus for you. Again, if you don't let the alien kiss you, you can walk through the tunnel just fine and walk all the way around. But if the alien kisses you, you have a bad day. I want to thank you for watching this part of Space Quest 2's playthrough. Again, thank you especially if you've watched all 3 parts. And if you've enjoyed it, please consider giving the video a like. It doesn't cost you a thing and it really does help the channel to grow. Likewise, if you enjoy the content that's going on here and you'd like to see more, perhaps consider subscribing, which is also another way to really help the channel grow. Thanks again, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.